Welcome to the Victorian era, a time of both scientific progress and social turmoil.
In the midst of these changes, Charles Darwin was born. After studying at Cambridge University, the budding naturalist traveled on a 5-year voyage aboard the HMS Beagle. His travels exposed him to natural disasters, giant turtles, ancient fossils, and more. In 1836, he returned home to process his findings.
On May 4th, 1825, Thomas Henry Huxley was born. Although he had little primary education, he gained a full scholarship with Charing Cross Hospital and proceeded to work as an assistant surgeon aboard the HMS Victory, followed by a 4-year stint aboard the HMS Rattlesnake, also studying marine biology while abroad. In time, he became a Fellow of the Royal Society, received the Society's Royal Medal, and served as a lecturer, paleontologist, and professor of natural history. We pick up in the year 1857. Huxley was back from his trip, writing more than ever, and I was hard at work writing what would soon be known as the origin of species.
Mr. Darwin!
Mr. Huxley, I nearly forgot we planned a meeting today. How'd you do?
Quite well, thank you. If I may be blunt, what brings me here today? You said you were gathering evidence for your big book of species?
Exactly. As you know, I recently spent some 5 years at sea. Most of the evidence I gathered is the basis for all of my current research. Here.
On the separation of species, natural disaster in relation to life. Say, why the pigeons?
Ah, the domesticated pigeon. You see, one of the most convincing arguments I've developed for my theory is the breeding of different species. Over the course of generations, man has created dozens of distinct breeds of this once wild bird, one for every man in London. And it's not only the pigeons. This pattern of organisms changing themselves to better survive in their environment has been ubiquitous since the beginning of life. And it's not only the pigeons. Just look at the domesticated dog.
How intriguing! If these thoughts are the basis for your book, I'll make sure to purchase a copy as soon as you get published.
Thank you. Your criticism would be much appreciated.
Of course. It was a pleasure seeing you again, but I do have another meeting to get to.
Very well. Expect my correspondence in the mail, Mr. Huxley.
I finished your volume last night.
And?
Well, your acute observations on the continuity of species have made me completely convinced of the fact of evolution. I do have a few minor suggestions, but upon finishing, I couldn't help but think, how stupid of me not to have thought of that.
Well, I should have been contented with 1/4 of what you have just said. You see, when I first began working on it, I had awful misgivings and thought perhaps I had deluded myself, like so many have done. But I now realize that I care much more about the opinion of my fellow scientists than that of the general public.
That is quite evident. I hope you are prepared for an onslaught of criticism.
Yes. Although some are very supportive, announcing my theory feels like confessing a murder almost. Still, I know it is my duty to share my research with the public, however abstract it is.
You must remember just how right you may be. This is what we have all been searching for. You have discovered the actual origin of species. Darwin's text weathered a storm of harsh criticism, earning small but loyal support along the way. By the year of 1859, the church had their Bibles out and creationists at the ready. They simply won't accept the facts. I've been arguing with the people at the Royal Institution once again, and they are still rejecting the evidence. Today, I spent over an hour just explaining how humans... All right, well, what do you propose then? If we don't take action, our science will never be considered anything more than a bunch of secular nonsense.
No matter. These so-called critics have been molded by religious prejudice. Genuine criticism on my science is what I am looking for. The church's views are changing no time soon, Mr. Huxley.
You may be right, but who's to say even an influence as great as the church's does not have its time? As seen in Descent with Modification, perhaps it is the dawn of a new era, just in ideology instead of physicality.
I believe you have more faith in my theory than I do. Well, more faith in the minds of the masses. But it's just, it's not true. I feel that my theory will never come into the light.
Charles, where's your sense of justice, of leadership? If you do not fight for what you know is true now, when will your theories ever be accepted? Depend upon it. You have earned the lasting gratitude of all thoughtful men. As to the curs which bark and yelp, you must recollect that some of your friends, at any rate, are endowed with an amount of combativeness which may stand you in a good stead. I am sharpening my claws in beacon readiness, and I hope that you will join me.
I just feel that the public needs time. I told you long ago, it took years to convert me as well. The best I can hope for after publishing my theory is that future scientists may learn from the truth it holds.
These attacks are preposterous. I am in awe that the Edinburgh Review would agree to publish such foul, blithering poppycock. Not only that, but the Quarterly has had the nerve to publish yet another article in spirit of almost personal abuse against us.
You seem to be developing quite a habit of storming in on me, Mr. Huxley.
Have you seen the reviews?
Yes, I have. Richard Owen is atrociously severe on your lecture. It misrepresents many parts. I feel that he is using his religious and public stature to conspire against
The
us.
Quarterly's report is not one to be forgotten either. Samuel Wilberforce is asking for a rebuttal in some form or another. I'll admit to him being a talented man and therefore respected, but as with Owen, by no means are his words justified by merely fair intellectual prowess and the mass of followers that a bishop is bound to possess.
I must say, I cannot suppress my indignation with the both of them. It is painful to be hated in the intense degree with which he seems to hate dissent with modification.
Yes. Well, for my own part, I, having taken control of the Natural History Review, have had some of my own opinions published to fight alongside my Origin Review in the Times. You see, Charles, this is what we need. The newspapers are only one of many ways to reach the public and make them think. There's a stirring, Charles. I have a feeling that this upcoming debate may be the strong factor that transforms the public's reception of Darwinism.
A debate?
Did I neglect to mention that? A debate including both myself and our Samuel Wilberforce has been scheduled for this Saturday.
On June 30th, 1860, over 700 people flooded Oxford University to witness the grand public debate. I was too sick to attend, as I often was, but I assisted Huxley in his preparations.
When examining dissent with modification, we must first look to the struggle for existence between organisms, namely that of humans.
Although the debate was public, and both Owen and I had coached a speaker in preparation, the debate was almost solely between Huxley and Wilberforce.
If I were to make a prediction right now, I would say that the name of the man who created that crude and basic theory will be remembered long after the title of our bishop has been lost to time.
Although there was never a winner, Huxley would be forever known for taking the debate with his reply to Wilberforce's question of whether it was his grandfather or grandmother who was the ape.
Well, Mr. Wilberforce, I asserted and I repeat that a man has no reason to be ashamed of having an ape for a grandfather. If I am asked to choose between being descended from the poor animal of low intelligence and stooping gait, or from a man endowed with great ability and splendid position who should use these gifts to discredit and crush humble seekers of truth, I hesitate what answer to make. If there were an ancestor whom I should feel shame in recalling, it would be a man of restless and versatile intellect who appeals to religious prejudice.
Thomas Henry Huxley was recognized as one of the intellectual giants of his time. He was an excellent writer whose most well-known book is Evidence of Man's Place in Nature. He was also a philosopher who coined the term agnosticism. His legacy was carried on by the thousands who watched him speak. He led a great debate on the subject of evolution, and the thousands who watched him speak, as well as his own grandchildren, were a great part of his legacy. His grandchild, Aldous Huxley, was the author of the classic dystopian novel Brave New World, and Julian Huxley funded the World Wildlife Fund in 1961.
Charles Darwin's death in 1882 made front-page news worldwide. His theories were soon supported by a number of other scientific discoveries, and passages from The Origin of Species are still featured in textbooks around the world. His findings not only positively impacted medicine, treatment of animals, and the relationship between scientists and the public, but they were also twisted into the foundation for social Darwinism, the idea that survival of the fittest can be applied to groups of people. Darwin is widely recognized as the father of modern biology, a tribute to his revolutionary and evolutionary career.
Together, Charles Darwin and Thomas Henry Huxley led the evolutionary battle, transforming the field of science forever. Each would be a great influence for generations to come and was a pioneer in their own time. Although this battle still rages on, the theory of evolution has been repeatedly tested and is found to be the best explanation for the origin of species. Thank you.